Okay, so you're in the car or train or whatever mode of transportation that relates personally to you. You're younger, how much younger I don't know, but the car ride isn't just a drive over to Dave's or the pizza place downtown. This car ride is pure adrenaline meets utter focus with just a sprinkle of nervous tension, because this car ride is to your first ever Melee tournament. Remember it with me. Remember how confident you were? Maybe you didn't necessarily believe that you could really win the tournament, but there was at least one or two scenarios that went through your head where you did. As you walked through that door and you bestowed your eyes on your unknown competition, you thought, I can do this. And that feeling of I can do this was most likely met with, oh wow, I get it now. How'd you do? Did you meet your expectations? Most likely, like every local kid beating their friends, reality slowly set in and you became aware of just how fucking big the pond was. When you yourself are the best player you've ever seen, the confidence flowing through your brain when finding out a Smash tournament exists near you, and that desperately excited, eager feeling can be a dopamine rush that you can still tap into now. But at some point, after stepping foot into that venue, that Falco Shine dared you for the very first time, and your character building arc began. How long's it been? How many cycles around the sun have you lived through since that moment? Couple years, a toddler's age, a full decade? How long has it been since that moment of I got this? And what happened after? Have you achieved the goals set out by that innocent past version of yourself? Most likely the answer is no. And that's not because you're a little baby bitch or your parental figure was right about all those mean things they said. It's because you just had no idea how good people are at this game. Beating someone at Super Smash Bros. Melee is hard. In almost every case, this game takes years to get good at. In this video, we'll be highlighting players who never gave up that initial spark that we all shared and managed to defy odds by being the best player in the room on that given weekend. These bracket runs and grand final sets are where players broke out of just another top 10 player and became household names in Melee's history. Our honorable mention slot goes to Crush at Holiday Bash, and the only reason it's an HM is because we've covered it in full in this video. And lastly, we only included runs that were considered majors in Melee, and at that, only one entry per player. If you think we forgot someone, or you just want to boost our YouTube algorithm, drop some words in the ever so welcoming comment section. The only reason I censor swears in these videos is because my mom watches them, and here's Allston Melee's 10 players who weren't supposed to win the tournament. Shouts out to these people for the video suggestion, subscribe for weekly Melee top 10s, and number 10, Mewtwo at Cataclysm 3. Early 2006 Melee was one of the first times new blood had started to pump through the body since the competitive launch in 03. Even though competitors like Ken were still very much on top of the world, players once thought of as noobs were now pros, and it was clear that some people were on their way out. Mewtwo was a part of the new guard of players who were making the veterans of the scene start to reluctantly question if their time playing Melee was up. Consistently landing in top 8 slots at MLG events across the globe, M2K, the Fox main, always had a hard bracket, but was always pulling upsets in that bracket. Cataclysm 3, hosted by the legendary TO group The Mages, had so many big names in Melee to kick off 2007 with 112 entrants including players like Isaiah, Husband, Ford, PC Chris, Chudat, KDJ, and many, many more. By 07, Mewtwo had really proven himself on the major scale, and while we can't fully trust the seeding projection on a bracket from 2005, it's very likely that M2K was reluctantly given a top 3 seeds over a couple legends, but at the cost of one of the hardest runs possible. Mewtwo was met with Zoso and Court to make top 24, and if you asked a player from New England, there wasn't any world where he was beating Court. Court's Peach was undoubtedly a top 10 player at the time, but it didn't exactly look like that against M2K. After defeating Court, in winner's quarters, Mewtwo would be up against the Arizona legend, Forward. At this point, Forward's Sheik was becoming much more expected than his Falco, and especially if he was playing the zero to death simulator that M2K was becoming. After a back and forth set, Mewtwo would barely pull off the victory and advance to winner semis. Unfortunately, due to no recordings at this point, all we can really say is that M2K beat PC Chris in winner semis and Chudat in winners finals. Losers finals is where shit gets recovered, and Korean DJ would pull off an upset against Chudat, thus meeting M2K in grands. At this point, regardless of who was going to be crowned the victor, Cataclysm 3 had set the precedent for the future tournaments of 2007 and on. Korean DJ and Mewtwo Smash careers share tons of parallels, including the characters they use and even their breakout tournament in 06. As perfect of a storyline as it was alone for them to be meeting in grands, we like to think that M2K's Game 5 victory to win the tournament was kinda poetic. Cataclysm 3 was the first major Smash event Mewtwo had ever claimed first place at, but as we all know, it would be far from the last. While there are plenty of other tournaments M2K could have been storyboarded for, we include his very first to showcase the time in his career that might have been a little bit similar to the up-and-comers now. Number 9, DrPee at ROM 3. By 2010, the random Falco player from North Carolina was now that dude who somehow beat HBox at Herb 3 to defend his home turf with a really bad tag. DrPee headed into the extremely stacked ROM 3, most likely somewhere around this seed base in the bracket. But it's worth noting that because Top 64 is based on pools, there were scenarios where highly ranked competitors squared off early. In winners quarters, PP faced J-Man, the NYC favorite who was just coming off of hot placements in 09, but within 7 minutes start to finish, DrPee was standing up with thoughts of preparation for winter semis. On the other side of bracket, first seed and contender for best in the world, Mango was clearly not trying his hardest, losing to Kirby Kaze with his Falcon. DrPee was set up for his best tournament run ever, having Kirby Kaze, a Sheik player he felt confident against, into Mewtwo, a player he didn't feel so confident against. But if there was ever a time, it was this one. But then Kirby Kaze kinda destroyed him. After having his easiest run to win the tournament taken away, when walking up to the setup to play Hungrybox, PP recalled being mad as hell that it wasn't to play winners finals, and took those frustrations out on the Puff main. While HBox was up in lifetime sets, the last couple had swung to PP, and this was clearly another one for the Falco. From this point on, PP really didn't have another contested set until the very end, defeating J-Man, who had literally just defeated half the fucking losers bracket after losing to PP. The rematch was just as bad. Getting his run back with Kirby Kaze, PP had his chance to repent for his sins, and did so by running over Kirby Kaze 3-1 in a similar fashion that he'd been run over earlier. Now set up to play M2K in Grands, the difficulty in the game just went up a decent bit. PP had only taken a single game off of Mewtwo and the multiple of chances that he got prior. Their first game of Grand Finals looked pretty identical to the PP M2K sets that came before them, but maybe it was the reminder of anger he felt from losing to Kirby Kaze, maybe realizing how far he come in bracket, or maybe bullying Marth on Dreamland just feels fucking good sometimes, but PP would sweep the next 3 games and take his first set off of Mewtwo. In the next 5 games of Melee that came after, PP would claim his first tournament win over multiple of the top names in attendance, beating a couple of them along the way. PP's combo game on a certain stage in the Grand Final set had a lasting influence, but we'll save that for a future video. For being the completely unexpected Falco to take home first place over the players who were widening the gap, this tournament and future performances are why PPMD was a part of the group called Melee's Gods. Number 8, HBox at Battle of the 5 Gods. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hungrybox, the guy killing Melee because he can back air everyone? And to you, I'd say, shut the fuck up. But at the time of Battle of the 5 Gods in early 2016, Hungrybox still had some things to work on, dropping sets to lower seeded players, as well as sometimes looking lost against the European Foxes. The current thought in late 2015 was that Hungrybox could beat everyone, but the amount of times he was doing that every tournament were pretty slim. Battle of the 5 Gods, like the name suggests, was one of the first and last tournaments to feature all 5 of the players we've swooned over for years, and this was absolutely during the whole Armada reign point in Melee's life. But at Battle of the 5 Gods, after 3-0ing Armada in winners finals, Hungrybox started to become the Puff player that had a reign of his own. After dropping the first set of Grands to Mango, who was on the dream run, Hungrybox would end Twitch Chat's best case scenario with a 3-1 win of his own, and the Battle of the 5 Gods dub was the start of HBox's dominance, securing his momentum to take EVO 2016 months after. While nowadays it's easy to just think of Hungrybox as the evil villain we must work together to defeat, there was really a time not that long ago where that was not the case. Number 7, Faceroll at DreamHack Atlanta 2019. At DreamHack ATL, Faceroll was the 4th seed with the smell of blood in the water for the 1st seed M2K. Beating hometown Georgia hero H2A and fellow rising California Sheik with glasses Spark to make top 8 of winners, Faceroll's streak of seeded dubs was over. Meeting M2K in semis, the set played out probably exactly how you thought it would, with Faceroll falling 3-1. Coming across friend of the pod Calvar, Faceroll had his hands full in a Game 5 tight battle scenario. Barely squeaking out the 5th game against Calvar, he was again against Spark, who had just unexpectedly claimed victory royale over S2J, and was faced with his 2nd Game 5 in a row. Mustering up his inner Smash tutorials Kira, he fully claimed his spot as the Sheik at the event, who wasn't M2K. After getting 3-0'd by M2K in winners finals, none was looking for Sheik redemption in losers, but his luck was not in Atlanta. Getting 3-0'd by 2 Sheiks in a row, none was out of the tournament, and seemingly the last chance for an M2K upset was out. And then this happened.
And 3-0 for Faceroll.
Wow, what a set.
What a set.
Faceroll's 3-0 win over M2K was the last thing anyone expected out of DreamHack Atlanta 2019 Grand Finals. After Faceroll won the set, people still expected Mew2King to turn it back around and win the tournaments, but the next set would be the same, if not worse. Faceroll had just 6-0'd M2K, including a 3-stock win against his Fox's best counterpick, and while chain grabs were on, vibes were off for Jason Zimmerman. Faceroll has become an even more consistent face at the top of the scene, recently overperforming at the Slippy's Champions League. His first place finish at DreamHack is an example of an unexpected outcome and how the first seed of the tournament might not be so indestructible. Number 6, Leffen at Gommel 2015. In an era not so long ago, where the whole Gods of Melee thing was still somewhat intact, Leffen stood out as the outlier, as one of the only non-gods who could still win a super major. Given the title Godslayer, Leffen clearly had some hurdles to get over before being able to ascend to the godhood himself. While everyone was at the edge of their seats waiting for the next super major, and specifically what was in store for Leffen at Big House 5, the outcome was more than unexpected when the US government got involved. We'll save the full tale of Leffen's visa for a future video, but due to issues with Leffen being a Swedish player sponsored by a US company, quote unquote, to work in the US, Leffen was unable to make it to Big House, and then Genesis, and then Summit, and slowly more and more tournaments became Leffenless. When Leffen was able to finally return to Melee a full year later, he'd obviously be given a little bit of slack entering events for the first time in fucking forever, but honestly, people started to doubt the Godslayer after his first few tournaments back. And that brings us to Gommel 2015. Leffen quite literally went from getting upset and looking shaky at the Canadian Major to upsetting everyone with the hardest bracket imaginable just a few weeks later, beating Mew2King, Armada, Hungrybox, and Mango back to back to fucking back. Leffen had just won Gommel 2015 with a bracket run worthy of being in the conversations for best run ever. Leffen's transition of trying to get a grip back on the Melee scene to consecutively beating the only players ranked above him is still one of the wildest miracle runs to ever happen. Leffen is solely held back on this list because if you were to ask the people who still really believed in Leffen's ability, they would have told you this was still possible. But even with the believers in mind, Leffen was not supposed to win this fucking tournament. Number 5, Wizzy at Smash and Splash 5. Wizrobe started his place in the Melee scene on a note that might be familiar or completely drastic to your own. When attending major Smash events, Wizrobe would hunt down his favorite top players for their autograph, storing all of his written signatures on a Smash notebook. Finally getting his most sought after scribble from his favorite player of all time, Isaiah, a Captain Falcon legend was unknowingly signing the notebook of a boy who was going to join that legend status. At Smash and Splash 5, over 800 people tried to sign up and win Melee singles. This list included pretty much everyone who plays Melee in the Midwest, plenty of the names in the top 50 range, and 4 out of 4 of the top 5 who weren't retired. After winning his pool, Wizrobe's round 1 in top 64 would be far from routine, going to game 5 with Spark, who wasn't nearly as recognized as he is today. Wizrobe's next match in bracket would be the Falcon that is consistently compared to him, but only as his antithesis, the always down to throw a set for some nutty shit, None. Wizrobe, None, and S2J have all been thought of as the top 3 Falcons, and at this time, the thought of Captain Falcon winning a major was a conversation only reserved for Smash content trying to clickbait their viewers. A decade-long joke of Falcon winning a major was exactly what it was being set up as, a joke. But what was a joke to some was a career-long and constant proving point for others. Being the 6th seed overall, Wizrobe defeated Leffen, Amsa, and most unthinkable of all, Hungrybox twice, only dropping 1 game per set to become the first Captain Falcon player to ever win a super major. Defeating the number 1 and number 3 players according to the top 100, you can feel the crowd start to understand the reality whenever the camera pans over to them. While he notably dodged Mango, who he'd struggled with, Wizrobe proved that Captain Falcon has the tools possible to win the tournament in the hands of the right player on the right day. Wizrobe went from getting signatures from the Falcon players he wanted to be like, to literally doing what those players thought was unthinkable with the character. Number 4, Zane as Shine 2018. If you want to hear a different side of Shine 2018, go check out our top 10 mainstream moments in Melee video, but let's just say a lot was riding on this event, maybe more than the prize pool indicates. While Zane had proven himself as the new top 10 talent, coming off the unexpected upsets he had recently pulled off, people were still undermining his place at the top a good bit, and that's fair. While most players in our scene who can claim the status of top 10 in the world have been striving and working towards that goal for years on years, Zane was an unexpected talent, achieving that status faster than most expected. We have to emphasize that Zane's placings in 2018 were constantly doubted, but he consistently proved the Marth haters wrong. Entering the tournament as the 6th seed, not even the MDVA fans could have predicted what was about to happen. Zane's run to top 8 was notable enough, beating Lucky and None to make it through winners, but in everyone's eyes, the run was about to come to an end. Faced against Hungrybox, the 1st seed and best in the world, Zane's side of winner semis was the hardest possible on paper. After a grueling tug-of-war set of Super Smash Bros. Melee, Zane pulled the upsets of upsets in a Game 5 set against HBox and would advance to winners finals to play against Mango. And after another heart pounder of 5 games, Zane was set up in winner side of Grands of a tournament where he had no business being in the winner side of Grands. After HBox had 3-0'd Mango in losers finals, the best player in the world got his second chance at the up-and-comer, but HBox was looking lost. Zane, the 6th seed in rank 7, had done the unthinkable and gone from a dock kid trying to dare people to being a sudden roadblock for several of the best players in the world. Zane is now a staple of the top echelon, consistently found in the final sets of the tournament, but Shine 2018 was the very first and very unexpected win for the new peak of Marth players. Number 3, Axe at Smash Summit 8. Smash Summits are generally considered one of the hardest tournaments in the Melee scene. Starting off back in 2015, Summit has always aimed to give competitors the ability to perform as best as possible, being an invitational event with most of the normal top player qualms alleviated. Axe entered Smash Summit 8 as the 8th seed overall, and along with Amsa, they were the only 2 players attending not picking top tiers, but we'll cover that in a future video. Never letting go of his initial dreams with Pikachu, Axe was the 10th best player in the world according to the 2018 Top 100, but still had not been able to claim the highest tiered events. While Axe was the 8th seed on paper, that number does not really tell the difference from how we think of the gap between the players at the top. You might be able to actually count in your hands the number of people who have won Melee Super Majors in modern times, and those people are nothing but recognizable faces in our scene. At one of the most upset-heavy tournaments to ever happen in Melee's history, in his first match of the bracket, Axe defeated Zane in a close Game 5, in a matchup that Axe has had a firm grip on. However, his next set wouldn't be nearly in his favor, playing Mango, who had a decent lead in their recent head-to-head. Their first 4 games would be as even as possible, going to last stock every time and trading as they went, but Axe would pull decently ahead in the final game, pulling off the upset. Being up against Wizrobe in winter semis because of the flurry of upsets, Axe would take the set 3-1, holding a decent lead for most of it, continuing the stronghold over Falcons in a time where he needed it most. Meeting Leffen in winners finals, Axe was yet again playing a top 5 player who he'd usually lost to. But Axe would immediately set the tone, taking the first game. While their sets before might be a little bit different, Axe was absolutely in the moment, and his emotions after Game 5 really showed how he was feeling more than we can explain. In losers finals, Wizrobe shockingly took a 3-0 win over Leffen. Meeting Axe to decide the tournament, Wizrobe's 3-1 win in the first set of Grands had him looking like he was about to steal the show, but Axe would come back much stronger and do the impossible, and win a Smash Major with the character he'd always believed in. Axe's win at Summit will be a tale for the Melee storybooks for as long as those storybooks exist, because there was not a single person in the world who'd predicted Axe to take first place. Number 2, Plup at Genesis 5. January 19th, 2018. You've awoken from your totally comfortable sleep after sleeping on that weird sofa chair thingy that can be found in every hotel as a bed, and your Smash GG hoodie as a blanket. And as your eyes meet the Oakland sun for the first time, you realize that your friend is already awake. Probably because the floor is less comfortable than your chair thingy. As you and your friends start shooting the shit, the people who paid more than $60 for this hotel room slowly start to wake up from their actual beds, and you and your friends start discussing about what could happen in the top 64 of Genesis 5. Ryan is going through all the scenarios where Mango beats Armada in grands, Ted wants Leffen to destroy everyone, and Mike says, you know guys, I'm feeling a Plup win. After Mike makes the blasphemous claim about Plup taking the tournament, he's immediately met with every argument and everyone politely explaining how there is no way that Plup can beat the top 3 players in the world right now. One day later, after both parties had sent a top 50 Samus player of their own to losers bracket, Plup and Mango will play in a winner's quarters match that has been heavily in Mango's favor previously. Ryan is very happy. A back and forth Sheik Falco set goes to Game 5 on the Genesis stream, and Plup manages to beat Mango to make top 8 winner's side. Ryan is sad. Throughout the rest of the day, top 64 bracket finishes up, and within a few hours we have our top 8 ready to roll in the Paramount Theater the following night. One day later, Armada and Plup walk on stage and sit down at mirrored CRT setups to play their side of winner semis. Even though Armada has recently shown that he's beatable to someone who isn't Hungrybox, this is Genesis, and Armada is Genesis. Every single Genesis 5 storyline that was talked about and theorized prior involved Armada in some grand and overarching way, but not a single one of those predictions, not even Mike's, involved Plup 3-0ing Armada. 2.5 hours later, when HBox and Plup walked off the stage after Winners Finals, the crowd was booming with energy in ways that make us adore Melee tournaments, but that crowd had a reason for screaming. Sure, they were screaming for Plup's 3-1 win over HBox and the hope for Plup to take this legendary tournament, but they were screaming for something else. The echo of the Paramount Theater crowd came from that part inside your heart where you remember your first tournament experience. The place where the inner monologue of the main character comes from, the fucking reason you give the $10 to the TO every week. That crowd was screaming not only to live vicariously through Plup's accomplishments, but as a shared group experience of you fucking got this. In the next 2 sets of Super Smash Bros. Melee, labeled as Grand Finals of Genesis 5, there were times where it felt all for nothing and the reminder of how hard it can be to persevere, but on the 5th and final game of Genesis, everyone, and most importantly Plup's, dreams came true, and he'd achieved the goal that he was constantly told was impossible. And our number 1 player, who wasn't supposed to win the tournament, please join me in the Allston Melee number 1 chant. Mango biased. Mango biased. A full year after Cataclysm 3, by the end of 2007, after years of relentless and non-stop travel, Mutaking was the reigning champ of the Melee scene. Players like Isaiah were getting 81st at monthlies, and Ken had big pieced after getting dethroned from his number 1 slot, and kinda called everyone nerds on Smashboards on his way out. But before his exit in 2007, Ken would take home the first, and seemingly only, iteration of Melee at EVO. But on that road, a certain Puff player had unintentionally helped him out. Occasionally found with a mohawk, the up-and-coming SoCal Puff main, Mango, had defeated the current and past number 1 players in the world, sending Mutaking and Ken to losers. Mango and Hugs would play a very unexpected Winners Finals that went to the SoCal OG, and if you asked Mango then, he'd say things like,
I'll play anybody.
Not scared about anybody.
Well, I see a couple people. They're all my friends that I play every day, so either way, we're all going home happy.
but if you asked Mango now, he'd say things like,
Did you throw to Hugo? I threw to Hugo, but he doesn't believe me.
Ken would win the event through losers, say bon voyage and sail his ship into the sea, and Mutaking would restore order shortly after. But something was coming. Much bigger than Ken winning EVO 2007 or Mango's totally bitchin' Mohawk. Bro, bring this back. Something was coming that was gonna fuck up everything. After being teased for almost 2 years, Super Smash Bros. Brawl released in January of 2008, and a terrifying story that we've done a good bit justice in our 10 best things to happen to the Melee community video. But something missing from that video is the story of Pound 3. Pound 3 happened during a very weird time in Melee's life. Only a month after Brawl's release, Melee tournaments went from looking like this to looking like the unsuccessful party that you tried to throw in high school that no one showed up to. 8-person excursions featuring 5 players who used to be top 10 and players at the bottom had been beaten down to the point of no return. Brawl, whether intentionally or not, was killing Melee. But for one cold February weekend in 2008, the Melee scene agreed to pretend like this was not the case. Pound 3 featured an insane send-off of 224 entrants, tons of important figures from Melee's past, and was one of the most hyped things the grassroots scene could ask for in their time of need. Mew2King entered as the clear first seed, with Mango somewhere around this seed. Again, we're using bracket projections from a time where slipping an extra $5 might actually help your seed, so take this all with a grain of salt, but the point is people didn't exactly take Mango's placings at EVO as scripture. Mango is still thought of as decently below the pack, and his first match in top 32 wasn't exactly a great argument for him either. Mango and Silent Wolf, for one reason or another, played Link Dittos in their top 32 match, apparently because Mango just wanted out of the tournament in order to catch a flight home. Mango lost the Link Dittos, which would soon become the most famous Link Dittos to ever happen in Smash, but that wasn't because of the gameplay of the set, it was because of what happened after. Mango would beat and sometimes destroy the slew of well-established and higher-seeded opponents put in front of him in set after set of unprecedented wins. Being forced to win 7 sets in a row to make losers finals, Mango was beating legendary player after legendary player. Once Mango had defeated PC Chris 2-1 in losers finals, reality really started to set in for the people inside the venue at the University of Maryland. In the 2 sets of grand finals that followed, with gameplay that is still fantasized about a decade later, Mango proved to M2K and the rest of the grassroots Melee community that he was the best player in the world on that day. The competitive Melee scene had turned over a new leaf from the times of total monarchy ruled by the one true king to an era where the number 1 slot was open to anyone dedicated and creative enough to get their hands on it. Mango had helped revitalize the scene by proving to everyone just how beatable top players were, and the future tournaments that were credited to saving Melee had been built off of Mango's unexpected success at Pound 3. For the first time in a long time, people were genuinely excited about the game's future in a way that sticks to this very day. How far have you come? How far has Melee pushed you? Every single person enters this community with a very basic and similar goal: to beat other competitors and be recognized for it. But somewhere along the way, you realize what sweaty hands and tournament nerves really felt like, along with the realization of how deep and accomplished this scene is. There's a good chance that you haven't yet accomplished the goals that were set out by the past version of yourself, and that's fine, because at the cost of losing your old ideas of confidence, your motivation and goals were rebuilt, and goddamn I bet you made a couple friends that you still care about. The players in this video created storylines that are crucial to Melee's longevity because it showed the light at the end of the tunnel for any person trying their f***ing hardest at the local, because most of these unexpected winners started out just like you did. While this scene may grow deeper and deeper, with new faces and new challenges along the way, there is hope if you try hard enough, and don't ever give up your Melee dreams.